Well, Kamran Bokhari is a fellow with George Washington University's programme on extremism. He joins me live from our Washington studios. Kamran Bokhari, welcome to you. I wonder what your thoughts are 24 hours on from this attack in Manchester about what's happened.
I think we're dealing with more than one person here. I have a hard time believing that this individual who's being named was alone in the fashioning of the IED and everything that goes into the production of a bomb and then executing it. I suspect that he has associates, if not handlers, and I think that that is why the threat level was raised from severe to critical, and which is why we have reports that the Defense Ministry forces are being called in to help with dealing with the terrorist situation.
Yeah, so your perspective is this sort of device could not be made by somebody acting on their own.
Yes, I mean, we here in the United States a few years back, I think it was 2010, we had the attempt to explode a device in Times Square in New York City. And that individual was not able to do so because he lacked the tradecraft. He had a lot of motivation. He was sufficiently radicalized to where he tried to do it, but then got caught. I mean, this requires a certain level of tradecraft to be able to get this right. There is a method to this madness, an insidious method to the madness, which we can't overlook. And therefore, I think that we're dealing with a sophisticated apparatus that is able to produce these kind of attacks.
Right, so radicalism isn't enough to get someone to the point of doing what we saw happen last night. How worrying is that now then for the security forces? This possibility that there might be somebody out there manufacturing this, assisting people who are radicalized, getting in contact somehow for them to be able to do further attacks?
I mean, this is a very worrying trend, and I think that this is why the intelligence services and other security agencies are not taking any chances. I mean, we have to assume that there is some level of an organization, a network, a cell that is acting in terms of a middle management that seeks to sort of groom these people who then perpetrate these horrific attacks. I mean, there is this model, there is this theory that there are lone wolves who try to do this. This particular bombing does not appear to be the work of a lone wolf, and therefore the question is, what is that wider network, and who are they, and how can we, track them down and neutralize them?
Since 2005, 7/7, the attacks on the London transport network, we haven't seen this kind of attack. We thought, in a way, things were moving in a different direction, much simpler, less sophisticated attacks, people using vehicles and knives. What's changed?
I think what has changed is we are now dealing with, the ISIS phenomenon. The ISIS phenomenon, we tend to look at it, okay, they're losing territory, so we tend to think they're weakening. And then things like this happen, and then everybody gets surprised. And we shouldn't be surprised, because we should not assume loss of territory means that the group and its operational capability, its reach across continents has been neutralized. Those are two separate realms. Back on 7/7, we were dealing with individuals that were linked to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was a much more, if you will, primitive organization when compared to ISIS. So I think that over time, the terrorists have improved their capabilities, and greatly so.
Yeah, what is actually enabling them to do that? What has changed over those years? Is technology helping the terrorists, such as encrypted networks like WhatsApp, of ways of communicating?
I think that the tradecraft has really spread. It's spread to a larger group of people. This is the next generation, if you will. Definitely, information technology has grown by leaps and bounds that also allows people to plan, plot, execute these kind of attacks. So there's a whole, if you will, generational shift, advancement. I mean, it's kind of like we used to have email lists, and then we had discussion boards, and now we have social media. The same logic applies here. We should not assume that the bad guys are not learning with time. Actually, they expend a great deal of resources trying to improve their capabilities and work around and circumvent the new security protocols that governments try to put up.
Right. So the question then is, what are the authorities to do about this phenomenon? I mean, does it help them that if this is carried out, if there is a group, if this individual wasn't on his own, there might be some kind of electronic trail, or have they got so good at evading, leaving any footprints, that it's getting harder and harder for the authorities?
Every one of these people makes mistakes, and then they leave some sort of a clue, a trail, a signature in this information age, an electronic footprint. So I suspect that law enforcement agencies will be able to track that down at some point in the investigation. But what bothers me is that their ability to avoid detection in the preparatory stage. And that preparatory stage is not, we're not talking one day or a week. You know, we're talking about an extended period of time in which they prepare, they train, they practice, they put the device together, and they manage to remain below the radar, evading detection. That is really troubling, is that we're not able to detect this ahead of time.
What purpose does it serve when the British government has raised the terror threat from severe to critical? I mean, what are people supposed to do? What does it actually achieve?
I think that there are multiple purposes for this. One is that it is alerting the public that the government is on top of this, because you put that kind of alert in the public realm when you don't know, you being the government, do not have confidence that you will be able to interdict a pending attack. And you have sufficient confidence in the intelligence that is alerting you to the potential for an imminent attack. And I think that's when these kind of alerts are put out in order to sort of minimize the damage and alerting people to not go out unnecessarily, avoid public places.
I'm afraid we're out of time. Kamran Bokhari, thank you very much indeed from George Washington University. Thanks very much. We'll be back in a few minutes' time with more on BBC World News.